Hi, welcome back to Deep Images. We are knee deep in strange love stories. And with me today, I'm Henry Covert, by the way. And with me today is CF Roberts, co-host number one, Justin Cotton, co-host number two, panelist supreme, Bill Mulligan, panelist supreme, Briggie Williams, Funky Lollipop. So we are the new Friday Five, where we've started a band. So here's the deal. Today, I'm going to talk about a strange love story. It's a love story on many different levels, and it's a movie that, unless you're really open-minded, it's going to offend a lot of people. Maybe not intentionally, but that's okay. And I get delight out of showing it to people who are uptight and homophobic. So I'm just going to talk about it. So I'm talking about Querelle from 1982. That's Querelle by the late great Rainer Werner Fassbinder, who's probably in my top 10 directors. Fassbinder died shortly after this movie at age 37, but he had made at least 35 movies and a bunch of television. So think about that. Um, He's one of the most prolific, proportionately, directors that's ever lived. And I've seen three-quarters of them, and I haven't disliked any of them. So Carell, though, is my favorite. It's the first one I saw. It was the last one he did. It was the first and only one he shot in English for intended for international viewing, to kind of expand the audience. He had a little bit of cachet by then, not a lot, but he was able to get an international cast, and everyone spoke English. And he got a few stars from other countries that had previously not appeared in his movies, or may not have wanted to previously. Um, Querelle de Brest is a 1947 novel by Jean Genet. Jean Genet was a homosexual writer. In real life, he had been in prison quite a bit. He was a thief and a sailor and some rumored a pederast, but you know, but basically overall a nice guy. And in his late life, he was writing a lot of plays, like The Balcony and The Maids and such, and he was a supporter of the Black Panther Party along with Gene Seberg. So more power to him. And this book is it's interesting. It basically explores the whole concept of and the narration for this movie. I forgot the name of the narrator, and to be honest, I looked for it. I can't find it though. But his voice is incredible, and he's telling you about this movie because the credit says Brad Davis, Franco Nero, Jean Moreau in a film by Runner Werner Fassbinder about Jean Genet's Querelle de Brest, not based on, it's about the book. So this is a meta film from all the way through. So this narrator tells us, the audience, like he's getting us in on these deep secrets of these character souls. And he does it in this very fascinating way. Carell was growing inside of us. And it's like, and the dialogue and the writing, the prose is just brilliant. It's just all poetry. I don't mean all the dialogue, but I mean all of the narration and stuff like that. Um, but because it has almost a supernatural bent to it, because they liken Carell, the main character, George Carell is his name, but they don't use his first name in the movie. Carell is a sailor. He's an opium dealer. He's pretty shady. He is gay, but he has never actually had, at least by his own recounting and evidence in the movie, he's never had sex up to the beginning of the movie with a man. And then the other element to the beginning of the movie is his captain, played by Franco Nero, Sablon. And Sablon in the book is writing this journal about how much he loves Carell, how much self fulfillment he gets from watching these boys on his ship clean up everything. And it's I mean, I know some people would think it was like, okay, he's like a leering pervert, but I'm thinking, to me, that's a homophobic reaction. Because to me, it's like, how is that different from a heterosexual man just having those thoughts, not even acting on them? If a heterosexual captain said, I really like watching these girls on my ship, in their dresses. Who's being harmed, But anyway, um, so Sablon, he's in the closet, I guess you would say that. And but he in the movie is an anachronistic movie. The ship and the costumes are of the 40s, but the technology is of the 1980s. So there's a pinball machine that figures into the background of a lot of the scenes, and Franco Nero uses a little mini tape recorder instead of a written journal. And this was the second or third movie I ever saw Franco Nero in. I mean, I saw him in the Bible when I was a little kid and in Camelot. So when I'm really getting deep into movies before any of his spaghetti westerns or any of the Italian movies, I saw this movie and I was like, this guy is cool as hell. And he's he's not afraid to play this kind of character at a time that a very manly leading man in Europe would probably maybe not want to play this character. And but
And
yeah,
it plays him right down the middle too.
he does, and he really loves Carell. I mean, he loves him and he's lusting after him. He doesn't really know him, but he romanticizes it. And he, like the overall omniscient narrator, omnipresent narrator, say things like Carell is a fallen angel that lives among us. He is growing within us. He is taking the best of us. It's all incredibly poetic, right from Genet. Gorgeous writing, and but it isn't a supernatural story. It's just these are the feelings of intensity in which he wants to make these characters kind of larger than life and dramatic. Um, Carell really is an indifferent character. He's not really fun to be around. He's not a nice or bad guy. He's pretty flat, and Brad Davis plays him pretty flat. Some people say the acting's terrible, but I've seen other Brad Davis. I've seen Fassbinder, totally deliberate. This movie does have some of those affectations that later directors like David Lynch, Yorgos Lanthimos use with the deliberately deadpan dialogue. Lose a lot of people. Why are they talking that way? That's not throughout the whole movie. I mean, the movie is very theatrical. It's very stagey. They actually have these wild stages with these incredible props. There's a part of the ship that goes out towards the outside, and the outside is kind of like this indescribable. You can't tell if it's day or night, and it's incredibly well lit, almost dare I say Mario Bava esque lit because it's got all the same colors. Place, and it's bracketed by these two sculptures, which are erect phalluses and testicles. So they don't really bang you, pardon the head. They don't bang you over the head with it, but I mean, you'd have to you couldn't not see it. But it's really cool, and it's even on the European poster. He's leaning against one. So subtlety, this is not. This is about as subtle as Tom in Finland. So um,
Hmm.
I really, but this is what I like about it because when I saw this movie, I was just becoming in tune with gay people. I had been a little homophobic in the literal sense, not hating, but like afraid of it. When I was a teenager because of things that my mother said or some of my male friends. But, I had a couple of girlfriends who were pretty hip and they kind of opened my mind. So, before I got into a lot of movies or novelists that were openly gay, like I got into William Burroughs later, etc. Um, this was really the first kind of movie that really was like, this is like totally about this culture, or an element of it. And, you know, say what you want about me, but I fell in love with it. And I just I've scared a lot of homophobic people showing them this movie because it's very frank. It's very much the way these people would talk. I mean, they're basically most of the people are sailors with terrible pasts. They're opium dealers. They're thieves. Some of them are killers. And the narration at the beginning is like stories of the sea revolve around inevitably about murder and sexuality. And this is the world Jean Genet came up in, and he's reflecting it in this beautifully constructed. I mean, it's really the sets and everything. It is like a play with a huge budget, and there's kind of moving through these sets. The lighting's brilliant. The colors are brilliant. Everything's kind of popping, and there's kind of that fuzzy lighting that some people use nowadays, like Mandy. We were talking about Mandy, where it's got the colors and it starts to all blur together around an object or a person. So Fassbinder, this is the most beautiful of Fassbinder's movies. He's always got well shot movies, and he did do a couple science fiction movies that really exceptionally out of the box looking, but this one blows them all away. And the music is amazing. There's like this kind of bubbling organ, and then this choir of angels that keeps rising. And on occasion, they'll break. The narrator will break into the movie and go, here's what we're thinking, here's what Carell's doing, or he'll quote a poem that is relevant to this, or he'll quote some passages from the book Querelle, or he quotes like an ancient Roman adage, about men bonding. Carell is just kind of moves through this. Everyone's in love with him or in lust with him. That's the bottom line. And he himself is more like a reflection or a mirror. Um, and but he hasn't. Well, at first he hasn't done any homosexual things. So the owner of this bar called La Feria, which is just off the shore of where they're stationed, he's played by Gunter Kaufman, who's this not African American, African German actor who's in a lot of Fassbinder's films, and he's named Nono. He owns the bar. Nono is married to Lisiane. So Lisiane is like this chanteuse. She just spends her time singing these melancholy songs, and as the movie goes on and on, the narrator tells us this, and the characters do. Everyone ignores Lisiane. She's the only woman in this entire giant culture of bisexual and homosexual men. So she's lost. And it's kind of like expressing a point of view that maybe Jean Genet had, maybe Fassbinder had. I mean, Fassbinder loved women, but it's kind of like this is a world Louisiana does not exist in. A woman has no place here, not as an insult, but because this is not her sphere of influence. She's sleeping with Carell's brother Robert, and Robert is just kind of I don't know, boring, drinks a lot. He's kind of a sleazy guy. He's sleeping with Lisiane. She's married to Nono, and Nono talks Carell into receiving sexual attention from him. And so then you get into the whole controversy of, well, is it gay if you're giving it or taking it? And like if you're taking it, you're not really gay. And I'd heard that for years from different, both gay people and homophobic people. And so to Carell, he's not gay because he took it. He was the receiver, and he's very deadpan. He's like, so what? If I like it, who cares? What does it matter? That's his attitude to everything. Is hilarious. So there's a cop named Mario who's played by Dirk Keist or Reist, who is one of the writers, and he's got the whole Tom of Finland gig, with the captain's hat and a leather vest with nothing under it and spikes and everything. He flirts with Carell and he tries to get Carell to do something, and Carell does kind of do him a sexual favor, and Carell's like totally like he's like look at my you know I forgot which slang word he uses, but he's like, it's really big, and Carell's like, I don't care about size. And he's like, go ahead, touch it. It's a monster. And Carell's like, that doesn't impress me. I don't care. you know? and, um, so he's just like lackadaisically going through these events. His main plot thing, which is really just kind of a device for him to meet other characters, is he's dealing this huge amount of opium that they're going to drop off on one of their next mainland or wherever they are, and the love part of this comes in different elements. I consider a love story because, first of all, Sablon loves Carell. It's unrequited, it's grandiose. But by the very end of the movie, Carell surrenders to Sablon because of this chain of events. And I'm not even sure at the end if Carell's sincere with Sablon or not. And Sablon seems a little cautious, like, maybe I finally got him. Maybe he's fucking with me. It's too good to be true. And so I always found that interesting. But on the road to that, Carell does have some of these sexual encounters, but we encounter a character named Jill, who's played by the same actor as Robert, who plays his brother. So they're lookalikes. No one comments on this until way into the movie, though. Um, but Jill is a guy who claims to be straight, but everyone thinks he's gay, and they pick on him. But overall, it's very humiliating. And so he has a little friend named Roger that he's kind of always flirting with by saying, your sister is very beautiful. You look just like her. And it's like, okay, we get it. But Roger apparently isn't gay. But Jill comes to this point where he commits some crimes. Uh, but along the way, so does Carell. Carell kills this one guy. He ends up planting the knife somewhere else, and eventually Jill gets accused of this murder. And then there's this other thing that happens. So Jill becomes kind of like he's going to be an outlaw. Now, by this time this has happened, Carell, who knows all these circumstances and he's responsible for some of them, nonetheless, he's like, I'm going to help you, Jill. And then Carell actually does fall in love with him. And of course, the narrator jumps in to tell us how, what amazing, thing this is and everything. Really well done. This is kind of the most emotional Brad Davis is in the movie. He's almost like he's like, man, okay, yeah, I guess I have a soul after all. I guess I'm a human being. I guess I'm gay. Who cares? And they kiss, but he sends Gilles out on the run, and when he does it, he changes his appearance and disguises him to look like Robert, his brother. He basically, what's terrible is he does this, but he's actually setting up Jill to be arrested by Mario. He's setting up his brother to be mistaken for the guy for his crimes. So he's like manipulating these people like chess pieces, and it's like he's so deadpan that it took me a while to figure out. Man, this guy is playing this like 4D chess with these people, and everybody thinks he's just this dumb hunk. But I do think the scenes that are requited and unrequited between the men are very well done, very tender, very powerful. The sex scenes, they're not like showing genitals, but if you're squeamish about gay sex, don't watch this movie whatsoever. I mean, everything is simulated that you could probably imagine, and lots of grunting and lots of dirty, filthy language. So, I mean, there's really nothing spared. Um, and yet, all that is nested within this just beautiful kind of fantasia they've assembled here. Yeah, like I said, by the end, Carell's like spouting poetry to Sablon because Sablon is like the guy who's going to save him, and he's not gonna pay for any of his crimes, and he's going to expiate his guilt for turning in Jill, and he is like, please let me lie across your lap like a pieta, you know. And Sablon's pretty happy about this, but he's keeping it kind of close to the vest. He's like, don't talk this way, Carell. Someone might take. I understand that, Briggie, you might have watched this movie, right?
I certainly did.
So what is your
Yes.
take on this, and
Oh,
your take on my
yeah.
probably bizarre take?
Well, I think well, everything you said was quite accurate. I felt personally it was the set. Let's start there. Kind of reminded me almost like Salvador Dali surreal painting come to life. People stepping into this world where everything is very sepia, monochromatic in tone, always looking like a sun is either setting or rising. You just don't know what time of day it is. It sort of has that feel to it to me. Um, I thought the set design certainly it's done on a soundstage. So for them to build these sets, these huge, like you said, they sort of reminded me of like wooden brick brick phalluses with these huge
Hmm.
brick
They are
kind of balls.
phalli, yeah.
Yeah, and then if you look, there's sort of these layered hidden messages I noticed embedded within the subtext of the set. If you look behind maybe some of the actors, you'll see that there are people eating each other out, or there are people like there's some sort of graffiti
Graffiti
somewhere.
has a lot of graffiti, yeah.
Yeah, there's this sort of like it's just sort of sprinkled in just everywhere in some places you if you're not really looking, which I wasn't, but then it was just hard for me not to see it. It was like, wow, okay. But I thought that was pretty interesting, how that also carried through the thread of the movie to set this bizarre kind of love story I felt was more based on violence and sex, and at some point you realize that one was a substitute for the other. Okay, so I'll back up and just say that there's that interplay between crimes of passion, and that crime of passion is also stirred up by deep emotions. So there's a lot of that in this movie, I felt. The interplay between the two brothers the way they greet each other when they first see
Hmm.
each other, how they hug and then they punch each other in the gut, which I thought was interesting. And then the no character who basically, and the other three characters, there was the cop, the no character, and gosh, one other character I forget, that they still maintained their masculinity as men, even though they were having sex with other men,
Right.
they still maintained their sense of who they are as men, and that was very important to them, and that they weren't gay, but they were still attracted to men. So that sort of plays into that, like a level of, I felt like a little bit of the self-hatred, which also
Hmm.
um, brewed that violence, but again, fighting within themselves, but fighting with each other. I don't know if that makes sense. If you can you hear
Yeah.
me? How's
Yeah,
my
yeah.
how
I
my
felt like Nono and Mario were
hmm
were not good guys. And they were
right.
basically rapists and hypocrites because they were,
hmm
well, Nono especially kept pretending he was straight to lazy end.
Right.
But I think what's funny is how between the narration and Carell, they fetishize Mario because he has money, because he's corrupt, because as they say, he's part of the furniture. So he looks the other
hmm
way when the opium deals come, and he's got the
Right.
Tom of Finland get up and the leather, and he's a cop, and so it's like Jean Genet probably didn't like cops, but he would probably be turned on by a cop like this, who had this kind of power over other men, and
Right.
there's an eroticism to that. It's
Right.
interesting.
Well, there's always that power dynamic, whether you're a straight cop or a gay cop. There's always that power dynamic.
Hmm.
So there is all of that that's thrown in there. Also, I thought there were some elements of what's this? What's the name of this play that was West Side Story, where they have the knives and they were sort of doing this sort of
Oh yeah,
choreographed
yeah, yeah. They had a
Yeah.
dance sort of. Yeah.
That's it.
kind of dance that was going on, and I thought that the costumes were sort of very Jean-Paul Gaultier. I don't know if you know him; he's a famous designer. But I thought the sailor sort of very, with the chest hair that was cut, was cut very low, and the way the pants were cut, and then you have like these two cops that come in that are very sort of fetish with their long leather jackets on, and so they really sort of portrayed the state very well in terms of its harshness and
Hmm.
not taking any bullshit. So I think that their costumes really portrayed that without saying too much.
Hmm.
That's what I kind of got from that. And like I said, I thought that the violence was also a metaphor for love they could not really show for one another. But then it's a roughness that's also involved in a lot of male sexuality, male on male. Sometimes heterosexual, but certainly in gay circles, there's a lot of aggression
It was
because
important in
women.
Jean Genet's writings
Mhm.
because Jean Genet did make one movie himself, which I
Right.
just adore, called Un Chant d'amour, or A Song of Love. And it's like
hmm
two gay men and they're in prison and there's a wall between them and occasionally they see glances of each other and they try to
hmm
communicate through it. It's like a 30-minute movie, almost no dialogue, beautiful music. And it's
Right.
just this longing. Like they got put in prison because they were violent, and then here they are, and they're feeling all these like tender feelings in this like cold, harsh
Mhm.
environment. So
Right,
beautiful.
right, right. And I also thought that oh my gosh, I forgot her name, the one female, the woman that
Louisiana,
was in,
yeah,
right. She kind of had this sort of Lily von Shtupp sort of,
yeah,
blazing saddles, falling in love, very Marlene Dietrich kind of energy
absolutely,
that
absolutely,
I thought was it played very nice off of the different types of characters that would encounter her, but then they were only using her as a vehicle, I thought, to get to each other without going
yeah.
exactly to each other, the two
They as much as
brothers.
say that,
We're
especially the
using
two
her as a
brothers,
vehicle.
and you know how near the end she finally starts having sex with Carell because she's always
hmm
wanted to, and it's really funny because then she's talking about how good he is. And then
Right.
after they've had sex, he's sitting there trying to unpack a cigarette, and she's like basically asking him, "Can you have sex again? Are you erect?" Without saying that exactly, and he's like,
hmm
"Nah, I'm fine."
hmm
It's
hmm
like I don't care. I don't care if I'm erect with you or
Right.
not.
Right, right. So that was my take on it. I thought it was really intriguing. Yeah, anyone who does have issues with that, I think they should watch it anyway because it's very erotic. It had sort of a Henry and June type of feel to it, which is a movie I wanted to explore at some point. But
Oh,
if
sure.
you're familiar with
Oh yeah.
Henry and June, I
Yes.
thought that was very subtle, erotic,
Good
very
example of this topic.
yeah, not too over the top, but gives you enough of that sensuality and the connection to those characters where you really fall into the storyline pretty deeply. So,
Hmm.
Anais Nin, which I've read a lot of her diaries
I
and
have too. Yeah, I love her.
yeah, yeah, I love her as well. So people should check out Henry and June as well. It's really good.
I'm glad for your feedback. Has anyone else seen it? I think Chuck has seen this.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's been some years. It's been a few years. I when I asked my wife what she wanted for Christmas, she said she wanted any Fassbender movie, and
Mhm.
the only one I could find out in the wild was Corel, and so I grabbed it. Despite the fact that we both seen it, we both liked it sufficiently to where we're glad to have it in our
But
collection.
this was the well. This is a good time to get it because it just came out on Blu-ray, and it's been
Ah,
out. It's been out of print for years. It used to be a hard
wow.
to find VHS tape. DVD went out of print fast, and there have been other foreign Blu-rays, and I brought one. I wasn't able to play it even in a region free one, so I just kept waiting till there was a North American. And when Criterion announced it, I'm like, okay, finally. I was kind of shocked actually, even though they'd
Yeah.
done several Fassbender.
That's
Corella,
a big ass package too.
pun intended, right?
Yeah.
Uh, the thing about Carell is it's the ugly stepchild of Fassbinder's movies. It doesn't get the respect as a lot of his. It doesn't get the respect among gay audiences. It doesn't get the respect as an art house film. A lot of people make fun of
Uh,
it because it's so campy and it's like, but it's his most beautifully crafted film, like visually and sonically.
okay, it looks good.
I'm so happy to be talking about this because this is one of these movies that I try for years to get people into, and they're like, I don't, what is that?
You're talking to the wrong people.
Now I'm
Yeah.
talking to the right people. Carell, yes, thank you, Briggie. Bill, have you seen Carell? I know you've seen a
I
little
have not.
Fassbender.
I
Okay,
have not. Yeah.
right.
I think
Just,
he's going to watch it though.
Justin, you should see this movie.
Yeah. I will
I,
look that up.
I would
Yeah.
like your viewpoint
I
on
haven't seen
this.
it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sounds good.
It's beautifully done though. But you know how when you reviewed Cruising and we're talking about different kinds of gay
Mm, I
subcultures.
like that. Yeah.
This is around the same period in the 80s. So this, of course, is
Yeah.
a different stereotypical subculture. The little imagery, like the sailor leather kind of stuff crosses over. I think the
No,
Carell stuff,
absolutely.
Carell is more romantic to me. I mean, I know it may not
Yeah.
sound like it on paper, but it's more of a romantic story than Cruising. Cruising is kind of like,
Yeah.
you have to dig for the
That's
romance.
a psycho. You're looking for a psycho killer in cruising. So this film's 1982. So yeah, it's about the same year, I think, almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it had
I
Yeah.
gotten
think
more
there's
distribution in America, I think it would have definitely been banned or something, but it wasn't.
I
So
think
Yeah.
so. I think cruising is more like a what was it like a Charles Bronson? What was those movies that he used to do? What was it? Death
cruising
Wish.
cruising to me is like an American
Mhm.
giallo. A lot of the tropes of
Oh,
the
okay.
Italian giallos are in that movie
Mhm.
because a lot of the giallos are sexual oriented, sexual objectification, and then the sexual object gets brutally killed, stabbed, penetrated. All that's in cruising. They just flip it over to a gay side,
Yeah.
but yeah, the movies you're mentioning, one Pearls Bronson movie that probably was influenced by it was 10 to Midnight. That's like his
And
sleaziest.
that's the one, right?
Uh,
That's the one. Send them
It's a
midnight,
great
right?
movie though because it's like Charles Bronson's in a totally different movie than everybody else.
Completely, yeah.
He's
uh,
fighting to get out of the sleazy serial killer movie. He's like, but Cannon paid me $1 million. I got to finish it. And he did a couple of movies at the end like that, but that one was the sleaziest one. So when he's like beating up the serial killer, I was like, this is really an insane crossover, all of it. But
mm.
all right. So thanks for talking about Carell. It's a strange love story. I highly recommend it. And we'll be back for some more very soon. And Briggy informed me before the show that she wanted to share some information with you guys before we leave.
Oh, I did. Yes, 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 yes. Well, you've got to subscribe. That's all there is to it. Leave a comment, leave a thumbs up, and let's talk about Henry and how blue he is. I'm not getting off that because you are so blue. You are like Smurf blue. Okay. So
As
anyway,
a Picasso's blue period.
anyway, really. But yeah, please tune in again. We have great feedback for you, great movies, and yeah, have a great night.
Thank you. Yes. Have a good evening.
Bye.
So we're going to turn it over to Briggie for her pick.
Okay, so just something a little bit different, a little lighter. This movie takes place in a time far, far away called the 80s. So,
We're no strangers to the 80s here.
the movie is called Mannequin, and it was filmed in 1987.
Great year.
It's, I'm sorry, great year, you said?
1987 was one of the greatest years
Oh,
of my
okay.
life, and so consequently of the
Yeah.
world also. So
Sounds good. Sounds good. So it stars Andrew McCarthy, Kim Cattrall, who's in Sex and the City. For those of you who don't know, she plays oh my gosh, Samantha in Sex and the City. Estelle Getty is in this movie,
mm,
who was the Golden Girls, who plays the mom.
mhm.
Golden Girls. James Spader, who is a tremendous actor, now definitely, and
By the time
Christopher
you watch
Marr.
this, you'll have heard us talk a lot about James Spader in other
Oh
segments.
yeah, in other segments, sure.
Go ahead.
And Christopher Mark, who was in Designing Women. I don't know if you are familiar with that show, but when I
I
looked it
am
up, I saw him. I was like, oh, that's that guy. He's the black guy in
Delta
Designing Women.
Burke, and
Oh
yeah,
yeah, Delta Burke. Yes, yeah, yeah. So, but so, so this movie is very strange. It's called Mannequin. Hollywood seemed to be very obsessed with these types of movies, and I'm going to go into a little bit of that later on after I do a little summary of what this movie was about. Mannequin. It's um, Andrew McCarthy. You know, falls in love with this mannequin, how this mannequin gets to um, be in his midst has to do with some Egyptian um, Egyptian goddess, and somehow she's transported into our time. It's the 80s. You have to suspend disbelief.
does the
So
spirit inhabit the mannequin?
no, the spirit does not inhabit the mannequin at all. Like she is physically gone from the tombs of the pyramids and is transported through
Oh,
this wall into our time. And so when she comes into our world, she happens to show up in this dress shop. Well, it's not a dress shop. It's sort of like it takes place in Philly, which I thought was really interesting. It's sort of like a Macy's store. It's a very big, trendy store, and she shows up as this mannequin. And McCarthy's character is a sculptor, and he gets fired from all these jobs because everything he does, he's sculpting. He's like he works at a pizzeria. And he tries to sculpt the pizza, and he works, at another place. And he's trying to sculpt. Well, it doesn't work out. Then it turns out he's working in this shop, and I mean this store, and he's assigned to do the window with the mannequins. And he sees this mannequin. And it's so beautiful that he has to, of course, kiss her, which is very odd to me. So he kisses her, and she comes to life, and she's
that's cool
completely
when
like
that happens.
shocked and transfixed, right? He's completely transfixed. She's really beautiful. But here's the thing. He's the only one who could see her move. And whenever there's another person that gazes upon her, she converts back into a mannequin again,
That's her
which is
magic
just,
power.
well, she doesn't do it on purpose. She can't help it. It just
Oh,
happens.
that's weird.
So he could be so of course mayhem ensues. He's working in this he's working in this shop at night. And so he gets to spend time with her at night. And so they do the whole montage where, they're dancing and they're dressing up and they're kissing and but there's a security guard there, and the security guard has a bulldog in this, and he hears people talking, and he knows that he's there, but who's this other person? So he tries to catch them, and every time he tries to, he catches McCarthy character either on top of this mannequin, and she's just like stiff, and he's like on top of her, and it's just very, it's
Definitely
just
a
very
strange love
bizarre.
story.
Right, yeah. But he's really into her. They're into each other. But he was seeing someone, a real woman, and she didn't want him. But when she found out that, he was into this mannequin, she became very jealous
Hmm.
and conspired to try to get this mannequin. And the Spader character is like he's like the manager of the store, and he's trying to figure out what is it with this guy. So as he's doing these window displays, he's starting to get very well known because some of the displays are really beautiful. So then people start showing up and taking pictures, and then the press is interested in him, and then he becomes sort of a minor celebrity. And then he becomes like a full-blown celebrity for creating these beautiful displays in this store. The store gets very popular. And the Estelle Getty character who owns the store says, "Look, you're going to work here. I don't care what you're doing. Just keep doing it." But people are jealous of him, and they try to kidnap the mannequin. And so this is what winds up happening. And then they try to put the mannequin in a wood chipper, and it just gets kind of crazy. Um, but people begin to really think that this guy has a problem, so they try to throw him in a psychiatric ward because he's obsessed with this mannequin. And every time some people took pictures of him, but the mannequin was still a mannequin, and here he is like humping on this, inanimate, what looks like an inanimate object. But then when they're together and alone, they're very passionate toward one another. So that's kind of where I want to not so much end the movie, but I want to say that there are other movies like Lars and the Real Girl. That was like,
Mhm.
if you're familiar with that, that was
Yeah.
2007.
Hmm.
Ryan Gosling, and then there was My Living Doll. I don't know if you guys know that. My
Hmm.
Living Doll. That was a series in the 1960s with Robert
Yeah,
Cummings and
Oh
yeah.
believe
yeah.
it,
Oh, I remember that.
right? And what's her name? Julie Newmar,
Oh wow.
Oh
who
wow.
played
Mm.
Catwoman, right? So that was a series. That was a series that took place in the 1960s.
It didn't
And
play
then there's,
fare well though, did it? Like one season maybe.
Yeah.
I think it was one season. And then there's another one called One Touch of Venus, another movie with Robert Walker and Ava Gardner, where she's in this shop, a store, and he's the person that's like decorating the scene, and he sees this he sees this statue of Venus, and he decides to kiss her, and she comes to life. And it's like, after this, you guys are gonna have to talk to me and
And he's
explain
a
this
good
to me.
kisser, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then true to form, there's also a real documentary which I really found fascinating, and I did watch. It was a BBC documentary that I found on YouTube,
Hmm.
and I forgot the name of the documentary, but it was men who have open, committed relationships with these mannequins, with dolls, that you can,
Now, are these
Yep.
dolls or are these robots that are now being made?
No, these were dolls.
And
These were not
inanimate.
exotic.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, these are like the rubber ones, not the
Mm.
mannequins, but like rubber ones.
Yeah.
And one guy had like an entire harem of them. And
Harem.
that's what I'm
Uh,
calling it. I'm gonna call
Did
him
he dress all of them in really exotic clothing?
Yes, yes, he did dress
yeah.
them. He put makeup
He's
on
getting like
them.
What
maniac.
else are you gonna do with them? I mean,
Uh,
dress them, do their hair,
is
paint
he
their
a serial
nails.
killer?
Yeah, he painted their nails. No, they painted their nails, and then he was
Sure.
also a
I
photographer.
mean,
So
they
what he would
can't do it.
do,
Yeah.
right, exactly. So he would like put them
Huh.
outside, take them to the beach, and pose with them, like, and take pictures. And
Wow.
then he would have them in his backyard, sort of all dressed and sort of positioned in certain ways.
What
And
country is this guy living in?
this is in the BBC. This is in the UK.
So this to me, this sounds just like a
Yeah.
Giallo
So
plot.
so in the UK, so that's because he's in the UK, he's considered eccentric as opposed to if he were here, where he'd be considered a creepy
Crazy.
weirdo. Yeah.
I think he would be considered a creepy weirdo in the UK as well, because people were like, okay, what is this guy doing? But some people did not know that it was not a real woman because the way he would disguise them, like with like a sweatshirt with a hood, and he would be at the beach and it would just look like two people sitting. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
If one of
Just
them's a mime and doesn't, is just
Yeah,
doing that,
never
yeah,
moved.
that's awesome. Wow.
So and then the other man had a doll that he lived with his parents, and he lived, I think, like upstairs in the upper room or something like this, and he
Mhm.
had a full-on relationship with this doll, and so he would go and let it, like, take it to be repaired and stuff like that because it needed work done. It needed like new lips, or I don't know, it needed something. And
Mhm.
so this is a real this to me just seems like a real fetish in some sense.
Mm-hmm.
Only because this seems to be a reoccurring story from the
Yeah.
1940s, from the 1940s to this BBC documentary where this is really happening and occurring. So the going back to the movie Mannequin, what happens toward the end is that at some point, while she's being thrown into the wood chipper, he does save her before she is, demolished. He saves her, and then she comes to life, and then she remains a real, living, breathing woman, and they get married in the dress
Oh,
shop window. I want to say that the Christopher Marr character reminds me of Andre Leon Talley. Do you know who that is?
who is it?
He Andre Leon Talley.
Mm-mm. I don't know.
He was the he's very big in fashion. He was
Mm-hmm.
like with Vogue. He was the editor. He's a black guy, like 6'6", like black guy. He's passed, but a very sort of flamboyant, over the top, black guy. And so he was like the sidekick to the McCarthy character,
Oh, wow.
and he married them in the shop window, of course, and so they kissed, and like in the 80s, everything was so happily ever
How's the
after.
music in this
So,
movie? Is it very 80s?
um,
Like,
the
Starship.
soundtrack, the soundtrack, the outro was, I think it was Jefferson
Starship.
Airplane.
Starship.
Oh, was it Starship? Was it Jefferson Starship? Okay,
Yeah, yeah,
yes, yes,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That was the outro.
Nothing's gonna stop us now. Is the song.
Nothing's gonna
Yeah.
stop us
no,
now.
nothing
Nothing's gonna
stopped
stop
him.
us now, Justin. Nothing's gonna stop us. Yes. So
Good 80s
that's what
music.
was going on. Yeah, it was good 80s music. So that was the movie. It was very light and fun, and of course the
Mhm.
colors of what people wore back then were really interesting. But I thought the premise was interesting only because it had been repeated so many times. And it was good to just sort of fold all of that other knowledge in. People should check out One Touch of Venus. I think that would be interesting if they're interested in that movie. And that documentary I thought was really fascinating. This guy who had the harem of mannequins he met a woman and told her, hey, look, I want to introduce you to some people that I live with. And she said okay, and she went over to his house to see all of these very scantily clad, very well worn looking mannequins,
Yikes.
with bad makeup, sitting on his couch, and she was like, well, that's what he's into. But then after that, she just said, I can't. It was too much for her.
It's
So
always been a fetish on some level. I mean, like I said, Giallo's okay. Blood and Black Lace,
right.
the iconic figure in Blood and Black Lace, besides the killer, are mannequins, and same with the
They could
horror.
probably put that all the way back to Pygmalion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
that's true. And when I was a kid, I did see some mannequins, and I did kind of wonder if they would come to life. I mean, I was like, I don't know, 6 or 7. I was just very
Mhm.
mildly interested in girls, just in like, oh, girl. So I'd see a pretty mannequin sometimes, and then what threw me off was that metal rod that came out from under their dress and kept them up. And that's when I realized that okay, they're not going to move. They're not going to turn human. They're not going to talk to me. So I learned that
Yeah,
I was probably 5 or 6,
I don't
but
think so.
yeah. So it's a trope, but you explored it very well. There was also a Twilight Zone episode similar to that plot that I've always
Yeah.
liked. Unfortunately, I can't recall the name
Yes,
of it or the actors,
Hmm.
but yeah, that's cool.
yes,
That's cool. You guys seen any of this stuff?
yeah.
You other folk?
Oh yeah, you had to see this. This was
Yeah. I
a
haven't
fun
seen
movie
it.
of its type.
What did
I
you say,
heard it
Bill?
was a lot of fun.
You saw? Okay. Oh, good.
Yes, it's a fun movie.
Yeah.
Yes, it's fun.
Yeah,
It's light.
it's
Yeah,
fun, it's
right.
light, it's harmless, no animals were hurt in the making of this movie,
No mannequins were
Mhm.
hurt.
you know.
Right, Americans.
Yeah,
Somehow
I've
they
only
wouldn't.
seen a little bit of it. I never watched it all the way through. So yeah, I need.
If I'm gonna make my wife watch Cannibal Holocaust, I'm gonna have to sit through a bunch of mannequins to make up for it. So
Oh hell yeah!
that's cool.
Balance of the universe.
And just
All
so nobody writes a letter, I did not make her watch Cannibal Holocaust. Okay. She chose to watch it with me.
It was a consensual act, folks.
Yeah. That she will regret until the end of time. But
I totally understand.
I did warn her.
Yep.
Yeah,
You had
talking
to-
all about consensual acts in this particular series.
Mhm.
Yes, it comes up quite a bit. So
Yeah,
Anyways,
it's a little weird, but yeah, the mannequin was she did consent when she was not frozen as a mannequin. But the fact that he did kiss her without consent initially, I don't know how the mannequins feel about that, but I'm sure the mannequin will me too him at some point. That was supposed to be a joke, by the way.
I found it amusing. I was distracted by some bizarre message over here. I was actually distracted by a fan mail message.
Uh-oh,
My
somebody
girlfriend
sent me
my girlfriend informed me that she really loved the Blade of the Immortal episode, the most recent,
Wow.
and she said, "I love to
Wow.
listen to you speak. You were so intelligent." And I was like,
Oh
"Oh, that's
dear.
pretty nice."
I'm sure their desk is rising as we speak.
Yeah, oh, no, no, it was what I was talking about in the realm of the senses, but kidding. Okay, so let's wrap this one up. And we're going to come back to bombard you with more strange love stories. We love you all, and please leave comments.
so
We want to
much.
get to know the audience, and like the videos and subscribe to the channel. Thanks.
Have a great night. Bye.
And it's true that we cannot see that far behind. If we looked all the way in the past, we'd go blind. In the night, from the stars as they've all lived their lives, and the light that they gave as they burned and then died.